Our next panel today, Islands Are Rising to the Challenge, will feature representatives from the Micronesia Challenge, the Caribbean Challenge, the Aloha Plus Challenge, and the Best Challenge. In this session, they will discuss how their islands have taken action to protect their precious natural resources and communities, and why rising to the challenge is of paramount importance. Now I'd like to introduce our panel's moderator, Kate Brown. Kate Brown is the Executive Director of the Global Island Partnership, a platform that enables island leaders and their supporters to take action to build resilient and sustainable island communities. Kate is a passionate advocate for islands. She is a valued and trusted international partner and collaboration leader with the unique ability to connect the dots for issues and people. Kate has extensive experience in all island regions globally and brings an extensive network of island leaders, blue sky thinkers, and people dedicated to supporting islands. Let's give a warm hop-a-day to Kate Brown.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Philip. It was awesome, and that very cool video. So as was identified, my name is Kate Brown, and I am the Executive Director of the Global Island Partnership. And firstly, it is always very hard to follow Governor Leon Guerrero and President Grace straight after them. They have so much energy. And I really wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge Governor Leon Guerrero, who has recently agreed to join other global island leaders and become a leader of our partnership, the Global Island Partnership. So we welcome her. And we also welcome Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio as a new board member of GLISPA. And it's very appropriate that I mention this here, as 3 of the speakers on this panel are also GLISPA board members. And for me, it's very exciting to see these island solutionologists, if I might call them that, and action-oriented people kind of connecting together in our partnership. This panel will showcase how island peer-to-peer partnerships, such as the Local 2030 Islands Network, of which Guam is a member, and models such as the Micronesia Challenge, Caribbean Challenge, Best Challenge, and Aloha Plus Challenge can drive global commitment to achieve the SDGs and climate action, and also to support COVID-19 response and recovery. It will also discuss how islands are innovating around globally relevant resilience and climate adaptation solutions. We're all very excited to hear from these island leaders on our panel today. You may have also noticed that all of these partnerships and models have the word challenge at the end of them. They are all initiatives that are connected together through the Global Island Partnership. The challenge idea originally was when the president of Palau in 2005 challenged the rest of Micronesia from his commitment to protect 20% of the terrestrial resources and 30% of the nearshore marine resources of Palau by 2020. And this became the Micronesia Challenge, which was taken up by FSM, the Marshall Islands, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands. And you will hear from one of our speakers about it now. This was followed in 2008 by the Caribbean Challenge, and in 2014 by the Aloha Plus Challenge, the first challenge that focused on sustainability and green growth. Finally, in 2016, we had the Best Challenge, which is the European overseas countries and territories, and we'll also hear about that. All except one are or started within the conservation and environment space, but one of these challenges, Hawaii's Aloha Plus Challenge, has always been much broader. This brings us to 2021, and it is in this year that we see the fruits of what we have learned from all of these years put into action in the Local 2030 Islands Network, an initiative that GLISPA and Hawaii Green Growth are the co-secretariats for. For me, as a person who's been working on island issues for more than 20 years, this new network has enormous potential for changing the way we view islands, the potential for island actions and island solutions, led by, as we say in the network, island economies. The Local 2030 Islands Network is the world's first global island-led network devoted to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals through locally driven and culturally informed solutions. We will hear from speakers involved in each of the challenges about what has happened to date and these challenges, and then looking at the future in the latter part of the session. I'm very pleased to introduce our panel today. And thank you also. This session is hosted by the University in Guam in partnership with the Local 2030 Islands Network, the Global Island Partnership, Hawaii Green Growth Local 2030 Hub, and Guam Green Growth, or G3. And lastly, some housekeeping. Please be reminded that the session will be recorded or is being recorded. We welcome you to use the chat box liberally as a place to share your comments, thoughts and resources, and we will also share the resources of our speakers. If you are joining us from the Hoover platform, please send any questions to panelists in the Q&A box. If you are joining us directly on Zoom, please send your questions to the Local 2030 Islands Network moderator, and all of those will be forwarded to us. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Willy Coska, the Executive Director of the Micronesia Conservation Trust, a GLISPA board member, and also the Micronesia Conservation Trust is the fiscal host of the Global Island Partnership. So Willy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Kate, and Kaselelia Mainko from Pohnpei. As mentioned by Kate, when the Micronesia when the Micronesia Challenge was launched in 2006, it inspired a number of global initiatives that are now being implemented across the world. And you know, in some ways continue to inspire the Micronesia Challenge as well. And so in at the end of 2019, the governors and presidents of the Micronesia Challenge jurisdictions expanded on the Micronesia Challenge goals to not just on the conservation goals, but also expanded on the sustainable development around those goals, which includes broader fisheries management efforts, climate adaptation, sustainable alternative livelihoods efforts, and of course, sustainable financing. And so, you know, we continue to expand on the Micronesia Challenge initiative as we are learning from other initiatives that have been launched, like the Hawaii Green Growth, Caribbean Challenge, and others. And so the Micronesia Challenge initiative has also inspired some local efforts and expanded, those efforts have been expanding on the Micronesia Challenge. For example, the Guam Green Growth Initiative, the Blue Prosperity Micronesia Initiative for the FSM, the Palau Marine Sanctuary, that have all gone beyond just conservation goals, but are now helping the islands meet their UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so based on those, we can say that we've sort of, you know, the Micronesia Challenge 2030 goals have sort of made a jump on this local 2030 island network goals, and it's aligned very well with those goals. And so we feel that we've already begun to implement the local 2030 island network goals as we speak. And so Micronesia is showing leadership in this area. And as indicated by Kate, the governor of Guam, Leon Guerrero, has taken leadership on this. And we hope that she will be able to inspire the other leaders in Micronesia to come to the table on this so that we can move forward. The work that they've done, not just with the Micronesia Challenge, but all these other new initiatives that have come on board right now is showing that islands are not victims of climate change and the other global challenges that we are facing today, but as leaders of those solutions. And you can see those, they're very concrete solutions locally, regionally, and globally. And a lot of these solutions that are being implemented and a lot of the mechanisms and processes that are put in place can actually be scaled throughout the Pacific and throughout the world. And so we are very happy to be part of this network, and we hope that we can continue to inspire and be inspired by the rest of those who are on this network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Willy. And we'll have the opportunity to ask Willy some questions later on in the panel. And I'd like to now quickly move to our next speaker, Mr. Yabanex Batista, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, who will talk to us about the Caribbean Challenge Initiative. You have the floor, Jabba.
Thank you so much, Kate, and good evening from the Caribbean to all the attendees. It's really my pleasure to be here with you in this very important conference. And I would like to tell you a little bit about the Caribbean Challenge Initiative and how we are moving forward with our agenda for conservation and sustainable development in the region. In 2006, I was actually there at the launch event or one of the launch events of the Micronesia Challenge, actually at the CBD COP in Brazil. And it was at that time that two countries in the Caribbean decided to step up as well, inspired by Micronesia, and those were Bahamas and Grenada, to come up with their own national level challenges. But quickly later on, that self-challenge of Bahamas and Grenada turned into the first seed of the Caribbean Challenge. And in 2008, 5 of our island countries joined forces and officially launched the Caribbean Challenge Initiative, which, inspired by the commitments from Micronesia, decided to take on the following 2 main goals. The first one, to effectively conserve 20% of their nearshore ecosystems. And the second one, to establish the sustainable finance mechanisms that would help the countries achieve that goal of the 20%, but more importantly, maintain those actions into the future. Because of course, without sustainable financing, it's not possible really to keep those conservation actions in place. Since 2008, when those 5 countries launched the Caribbean Challenge, we then moved to the major milestone, which was in 2013, when we had 9 countries join together and signed a voluntary statement called the Caribbean Leaders Declaration. And in this point in 2013 was when these commitments of the CCI were reinforced. And not only they were reinforced, but we had a number of development partners also come to the table along with private sector actors to support the Caribbean countries in achieving that goal. And since then, it has been a lot of very hard work for governments, partners, NGOs, private sector, civil society at large in moving forward that agenda of the 2 goals of the CCI. And last year in our annual event, given that 2020 came and already went away, we decided to celebrate our accomplishments. And of course, it was a celebration that included, yes, the accomplishments that we have achieved, but also the lessons learned that are going to take us into the future, into the next decade. For us, it was extremely important last July to acknowledge and to celebrate that it is now 11 countries in the Caribbean and jurisdictions that form part of the CCI. And I would like to mention each one of them because this was really a collective effort. These were Bahamas, British Virgin Islands, Dominican Republic, Grenada, Haiti, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and the US Virgin Islands. 5 of these countries achieved the 20% target in advance of the 2020, and the rest have made really important progress. In addition to that, on the sustainable financing goal, we are very proud to also say that we now have in the Caribbean Sustainable Finance Architecture, which is composed of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, which is the institution I represent, and that is part of the CCI steering committee, and now 10 conservation trust funds throughout the region. And the objective of this network of trust funds is to serve as a menu to donors and initiatives and partners to help channel resources for conservation and the sustainable development agenda in our region. So we are proud of those accomplishments in the Caribbean, but we know that much more needs to be done. And that's why we are already looking at 2030. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're already cooking up some ideas that will hopefully launch us into the next decade, not only to work within the Caribbean, but across island regions throughout the world. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you very much, Jabba. And again, we'll have great opportunity to talk to Jabba later. And I think there's been some information put into the chat about both the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and the Caribbean Challenge Initiative, so you can read more there. I'm going to ask our next speaker, Celeste Connors, who is the Executive Director of Hawaii Green Growth Local 2030 Hub, based in Hawaii, and also a GLISPA board member. Over to you, Celeste.
Right. Aloha, Kate and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today and to share Hawaii's experience. And so wonderful to hear from fellow challenges that emerged prior to Hawaii's Aloha Plus Challenge. So just by way of background, Hawaii Green Growth, our network actually includes over 150 public and private sector individuals and institutions that are committed to stewarding our natural resources and cultural and human resources, and to advancing economic, social, and environmental goals. Hawaii Green Growth was launched a decade ago at the 2011 US hosted APEC Leader Summit in Honolulu. And I might have a few slides to share on some of our progress and dashboard in just a bit. But the focus is really on green growth. And the green growth stems from the 2008 financial crisis, when members of the OECD actually committed to a green growth economic recovery. And we heard the governor speak to this earlier about the opportunity for islands to lead on this recovery. And we find ourselves in a similar situation today, actually, as a result of COVID. So the Hawaii Green Growth Network launched the Aloha Plus Challenge. And let me just check with colleagues here. We've got the slides to provide a video. So the Hawaii Green Growth Network launched the Aloha Plus Challenge, and this was inspired by the Micronesia and the Caribbean Challenges. It was Hawaii's culturally rooted and locally driven framework that had strong political leadership and also serves to help achieve the United Nations 2030 sustainability goals. The network convenes over 50 times a year through our different working group structures to steward and accelerate action on achieving our 6 statewide Aloha Plus Challenge goals and priority areas. And as I mentioned, our model builds on a legacy of Indigenous knowledge and systems thinking and island values. It also builds on Hawaii's long leadership of climate change and in clean energy. So since our launch, and to provide an update, this unique connection of political leadership, vision, and concrete goals and targets backed up by a measurement process open to all residents to see and engage with, we are now recognized as a Local 2030 hub, part of the United Nations Local 2030 initiative. So we're tracking progress on the dashboard you see here. We're tracking Hawaii's economic recovery on the statewide website. This demonstrates our commitment to transparency and accountability and integrity. And we also convene our businesses that are a sustainability business forum with over 26 of Hawaii's CEOs of publicly traded and privately held companies that have committed to Hawaii's Aloha Plus Challenge, the SDGs, and ESG commitments, which is very unique. So building on this 6+ year legacy of the data on the dashboard, we were able to release the Aloha Plus Challenge 2020 benchmark report in December last year. It also serves as Hawaii's voluntary local review with statewide leadership and partners. The report provides the benchmark data from which we should track our recovery. It shows us where we're doing well and where we actually need to increase our ambition to close the gap before 2030 in this decade of action. So with GLISPA, we're now committed to working with the island partners through the Local 2030 Islands Network. And this network is incredibly unique as it brings together a diverse set of island nations' economies, nations, states, and communities from all regions in the world, that our islands are really tied together by their shared experience, cultures, strengths, and challenges. An island peer-to-peer network. So members of the Local 2030 Islands Networks have agreed to 4 principles. The first is political leadership on sustainability, climate, and clean energy. And we see clear demonstration of political leadership with Guam's Green Growth Initiative. The second is to strengthen public-private partnerships that support diverse stakeholders and integrating sustainability priorities into policy and planning. And this keeps our commitment moving forward beyond political cycles. We identify local goals to advance action, and we look to implement concrete initiatives. So we'll have more opportunity to talk about the Local 2030 Islands Networks soon. Also, building on this wonderful legacy of the challenges, we do look forward to the challenges coming together again through the Local 2030 Islands Network. I just want to say thank you and really congratulations to Guam. We've very much enjoyed partnering with them as they've launched their very successful G3 initiative, and we look forward to the good collaboration in the future. So mahalo to the 2021 University of Guam Conference on Island Sustainability.
Mahalo, Celeste. See, there you go. I can come out with Hawaiian words. I would like to thank you, Celeste, and we'll also ask you some questions after this. And I'm going to introduce Ms. Carol Martinez, who is the Best Senior Manager at the IUCN Global Protected and Conserved Areas program at IUCN. So Carol, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kate. I'm very glad to be here with you. A very early bird, good morning from Europe. So as Kate mentioned, actually the best challenge is the youngest one. It stands for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services in European Initiative. And it has been actually initiated by the European institution, hand in hand, the European Commission and the European Parliament. I will share a few slides to illustrate this great adventure. It's indeed quite a pilot initiative that is covering, as you can see on the map, 34 political entities scattered around the world and addressing biodiversity and sustainable development issues in 7 very important regions of the world. It takes its origins at the very first European conference on European overseas biodiversity and climate change, and actually all the representatives of EU overseas made a clear call regarding the need to have a voluntary scheme to support more action to tackle the challenges of biodiversity conservation and climate change in all the different islands. And this call has been actually renewed a few years later at the second conference, highlighting the need to strengthen and to pursue such a partnership initiative. It has been acknowledged at the international level and celebrated at one conference of biological diversity, conference of parties. And actually, we have been more than honored to see BES acknowledged as the first inter-regional global island partnership. Actually, as you can see, its geography embracing different regions makes already the connection between all these islands and other challenges. So the objective is actually focusing on the stakeholders of all these islands to enable them, to empower them, to better access to European support, to increase their capacity, but at least as well to show how with their leadership they can be key contributor of the European but as well the global targets and strategy. So to that end, it has been designed as a flexible scheme. As you can see, the scope is quite broad. It's about promoting conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and ecosystem services in all these islands. And the scheme has been tailored really to enable, empower the local stakeholders to define their project, their solution, according to their needs. So that way, it has been offering different types of grants and addressing the diversity of needs again and capacities. So other results actually from knowledge to action, the best challenge has been raising the profile of the very key importance of biodiversity of those islands, defining ecosystem profile, but as well define niche of investment for all the decision makers and specifying actually what could be the project to be funded on the ground. And thanks to that work, we are very happy that we have been able to fund to date more than 100 projects, and still new are to come since we will grant a new project this year. And it has been really unlocking potential on the ground, really empowering local stakeholders, awakening vocations, mobilizing the civil society, building capacity, but as well keeping on raising awareness about the uniqueness of this biodiversity and ecosystem in the EU overseas. Enhancing, of course, conservation measures. And you can see, despite the humble size of the grants, we have been able to achieve very important and impressive measures in terms of marine conservation, for instance. We have been able still to discover new species, and this project had actually already a real leverage effect, since many of them have been pursued beyond the time life of the grants, and it has been actually the base for new collaboration still ongoing. So I will stop here, and I will definitely discuss more and give you more details about this best challenge with the following discussion. But you can see already what is the scope of our activity. Thank you again very much.
Thank you, Carol. And again, another powerful island worldview. We're going to move into the question and answer section. And I thank you for all the questions people have put into the chat. We also have some questions, and I'm going to ask Willy, who hopefully is still on here. He's having a power cut in Pohnpei in Micronesia. But Willy, what do you see as being really next for your island challenge locally?
Thank you, Kate. So, you know, there are many things, many components of the initiative going forward, but the immediate next step for us is to, because the changes have been made to the Micronesia Challenge goals and the expanded components to it, we are having to redo the sustainable financing piece of the Micronesia Challenge initiative. So we're updating the sustainable finance plan as we speak.
Oh, awesome. And then I think, Jabba, what do you see as some of the potential? I think you talked about it in terms of being at the original challenge launch of the Micronesia Challenge. And I know that we've both been at a lot of places where even BEST, some of the leaders of the islands that are involved in BEST have really been very active. What do you see as the potential for collaboration across challenges interregionally?
Thank you, Kate. I honestly think that that is a no-brainer for all of the challenges that are represented here today, and for islands across the world. In the case of the challenges, as already said by all of us, we were all inspired by each other. And I say each other because this is basically a circle of inspiration. We continue to inspire each other as we all evolve. And I think it's just natural, literally, for us, the Micronesia Challenge, Caribbean Challenge, BEST Challenge, Aloha Challenge, and other similar initiatives to promote collaboration, exchange lessons learned, talk about what has worked for each one of us and what has not worked. And probably the latter part is the most important one, because it's very easy always to talk about successes, but it's a lot harder to talk about those lessons learned and those challenges. And it's really through that common exchange that I think we're going to be able to go to the next level, so that we can analyze what has not really worked that well in the last 10, 15 years that needs to change for us to really accomplish what we all hope the world is going to accomplish in terms of biodiversity and sustainability in the next decade. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Celeste. Where do you think is the opportunity between the challenges interregionally?
Oh, huge potential. And just so excited again to be speaking with everybody about this. You know, we can see I see this through the Local 2030 Islands Network and the hope to really amplify all of our respective challenges that we're doing, building on that legacy that GLISP has been so instrumental in creating. But I would say a couple of things specifically as part of the Local 2030 Islands Network, you know, the opportunity to partner with the US federal government, with NOAA, with NREL, looking at different ways of increasing our capacity, but critically important that this is island driven. And it's a peer-to-peer mechanism that really it's our communities that are defining what is important to them. And that actually manifests itself at the dashboard as well. The Aloha Plus Challenge dashboard, I think, is a very specific opportunity that we're working to share and partner and learn with other island economies. But in this case, the platform is unique in that it really captures the aspirations of a community. Not only was it developed through an ongoing consultative process, but it actually is community driven, it's bottom up. And so we can see island economies, our partners, looking at that to bring coherence across their different policies and actions in the way that we use that dashboard, and looking for opportunities to increase the capacity, strengthen the type of data that we have, and really collaborating around these frameworks. And actually, as inherently systems thinkers, as islands, showing the way forward to major economies on a net zero emissions pathway, a more equitable and climate resilient future. Because we're looking at how we're balancing the trade-offs between the various SDGs, between environment, social, economic, cultural pillars of what we're doing. So I see tremendous opportunity in building on the challenges going forward to the next step through the Local 2030 Islands Network.
Awesome, thank you. And Carol, the same question to you. Where do you see the opportunities for this collaboration? You're already interregional, but working with some of the regions that you're in, along with these other challenges, what do you think are some of the opportunities for that?
Well, clearly the geography is already advocating and pushing us to work together. So they should be, I would say, more exchange, more lesson learned in order to keep on this very mobilizing and inspiring dynamic. As you saw, actually, BEST started to really empower local stakeholders. And I think the next phase of BEST will be to actually to feed more this leadership from the EU overseas to connect with their neighboring leaders, but as well to get on board of this local 2030 network, because definitely the EU overseas can have real, I would say, innovation skills. They have proven to make bold commitments. We know already that, for instance, Curaçao as engaged with the local 2030 network. So we would like actually to bolster this movement and to bring on board all these EU overseas leaders to share their experience, but as well to pave the way to a more sustainable world, because definitely, as we can see, the island can define a solution and share solutions to the entire world. So through BEST, through our network, we would like to engage more with the other challenges, but as well to foster this community around the local 2030 network.
Awesome, thanks, Carol. And I think you were telling us the other day that Europe is actually adopting the model of BEST as a financial mechanism for grant making. So
absolutely,
taking something from an island situation back into mainland Europe is pretty cool. Yeah,
no, we are more than glad actually to have made a clear proof of concept thanks to this BEST challenge. And actually we have two success of indicator of success. First, the European Commission has decided to pursue this BEST challenge to make it own, which is quite a political uptake. They will actually continue the BEST challenge with a new re-granting mechanism that is part of their environmental flagship program known as LIFE. So here it is, and the political commitment is quite clear and strong. And secondly, actually, the EU overseas have been solution providers since BEST model will be applied on the mainland and will fund new activities through 24 countries. European Union members and non-European members. And what is quite symbolic in this new, I would say, phase of BEST is that it will turn the iron contents into a new life web, into a new green network through Europeans, actually from the Barents Sea to the Balkans, showing as well this effort of solidarity and joint action through Europe. So it's quite powerful and as well very, I would say, symbolic as a new path of BEST.
Awesome, thank you for that. Willy, if your power is still okay, how do you see the momentum that we see in the elevating the leadership of islands and island solutions through networks, including the local 2030 island network? Where do you see the opportunities there? How can we continue that?
Well, like everyone has mentioned, I mean, there's we really don't really have a choice but to make sure that we push forward on this, because if we are to meet our goals, SDG goals, as well as all our other initiatives, I mean, we need to be working together. And I think that, you know, the leadership that, you know, has been taken in Micronesia can, again, continue to inspire work in other places. But we're also very inspired by what's going on in areas in other parts of the world, like the Caribbean Challenge and the Hawaii Green Growth, what's going on over there in their Caribbean challenges, you know, sustainable financing mechanism, and the way they've set it up is very helpful for us. And so, and then of course the Hawaii Green Growth is, you know, going beyond just conservation, and that's really inspiring to us as well. I just see a lot of momentum going forward, and I see that the leadership in Micronesia is going to be taking on these and moving forward.
Awesome. The same question to you, Jabba. Where do you see the opportunity for this momentum continuing, including through networks like the Local 2030 Island Network?
Thank you, Kate. I think you mentioned something before at the beginning when you were doing the introduction to the panel, and that was island solutions. I feel that this momentum that has been created by the challenges and that will hopefully be carried forward with the Local 2030 network is that of island solutions. We have been showing, and we should continue and must continue to show, that us in the islands, island countries and those islands that are part of countries, we can come up with our own solutions. That doesn't mean we don't ask for help, but I think we need to continue to show that we have our own solutions that we can bring to the table to again move forward during the next decade. This is one of the things that I think has been most inspiring of the Caribbean Challenge process. One of the things that I feel the Caribbean has been able to accomplish during the last 10 to 15 years is to demystify that islands cannot come up with financing solutions and conservation solutions and concrete sustainable development solutions. We are all doing it in all these challenges, and I think we need to continue to do so, showcase it even more, and continue to then do what BEST has been doing now lately. It's not us only exchanging and finding out how solutions can be shared across island regions, but also influencing the mainland solutions. So we can be drivers for solutions for the whole world. And I think the Local 2030 network can play a wonderful role in that aspect.
Celeste, what are your thoughts on this momentum question? I mean, obviously, as one of the as already a member of the Local 2030 Island Network, you've kind of got a unique space. But where do you see the real opportunity, particularly with the challenges?
Yeah, I want to build on something Java said, which is really important. It goes back to building our local capacity. I mean, we were all devastated, I think, during COVID as a result of just geographic isolation in many cases. And actually the network through the COVID platform that many of our partners participated in, we came together. We came together during this time, and it didn't matter if we're in the Pacific or the Caribbean or, part of the United States or however it was framed. We were all looking at disruption potentially to our tourism economy, to food security, to energy security. And we were all innovating and creating solutions and working with each other and uplifting each other. So I think it's that real solidarity of a peer-to-peer network, which is really important, and building on that trust, because all of these networks, it comes down to trust. And the value of working and building on the challenge frameworks with the other challenges, it comes with understanding each other and trusting each other already. And we need to have that trust in order to accelerate this action. But it also going back to the financial crisis, I think we also realize that we do face capacity issues. We do have to transform our economies. The Sustainable Development Goal framework serves as a common recovery framework for a green growth recovery, and that we can all come around in our own locally and culturally appropriate way. And so we can accelerate our recovery, we can look at the SDGs, but islands can be leading in that green growth recovery, in that economic recovery. And we are transforming our economies as we do that, and that includes our youth. So when we think about that islands do have the solutions, and I believe in that entirely, our youth also have an inherent understanding of sustainability and holistic thinking and systems thinking. If you grow up in an island economy, you inherently understand that what you do in your upper watersheds affects your coral reef and the communities in between. And that knowledge is powerful. So our youth, our keiki, our communities, we don't have to be told what sustainability is top down. We understand those solutions inherently, and the value of the network and the challenges, like latching our canoe together again in this way, means that we can amplify that because we have that knowledge. So it's the uniqueness of the peer-to-peer relationships and building on that trust, which I think is really the way forward.
Yeah, there's a certain intangibility around a lot of this, but I think that's also its power. This is decades of people kind of working together, both at local level and at regional level, and now we're looking at how we can kind of see that at the global level. Carol, do you want to also comment on this idea of the momentum through these networks like the Local 2030 Islands Network?
Sure, thank you. Well, definitely this year is quite pivotal with the coming conference of the party for the biodiversity, but as well for climate. But if we think, for instance, what is happening as well at the European level, again, the new European biodiversity strategy is pointing the fingers on the importance of its islands, on the importance of the outermost region and the overseas countries and territories. So I are already spotting the lights on the responsibility, but as well the leadership of those territories and regions. So definitely I would like to second Celeste. The momentum is about keeping on walking the talk, but together, and to still keep on feeding this peer-to-peer approach so that it can expand the network itself, but it can inspire others. And we have seen through BEST how actually, it was really a trial. It was really an attempt. There was nothing sure at the very beginning. It was really a test for the European institution to see, is there something special to be done or something different to be done? And to be sure, they actually wanted to to go through different calls for proposal to see if there was still an appetite, to see if there was still imagination on the ground, and if there was still room for unlocking the potential. And each time there was a clear answer: yes, the local stakeholders were ready. So on this basis, I think they got evidences that there is capacities definitely to be better supported, to be unlocked, but to celebrate as well. And what I would like actually to see through this amazing momentum this year is, again, to give the hand to other islands, but as well to all other important countries, because definitely EU overseas and islands have shown that they can be solution provider, and for a better sustainable world, a more resilient world. And again, what happened with this terrible pandemic has shown the wealth of solution, of solidarity that islands, communities, island leaders have shown to the rest of the world. There was this COVID platform. We conducted as well survey through our own network. And again, it was highlighting the high level of mobilization, energy solution that the EU overseas stakeholders were actually willing to share and to demonstrate to decision makers. So definitely there is a momentum to take advantage of, and this year again is quite pivotal. And we can do this connecting better our challenges, connecting better as well other initiatives. What I did not mention is that we are already reaching out and actually sharing our experience to other important regional initiatives. With the Pacific Kiwa initiative, we are working in order to support their new action on the ground, to help the local communities through the Resembit project in the Caribbean, dealing with resilience, dealing with biodiversity. So again, I do think the key word is connecting and being together.
Thank you so much, Carol. And I think just as someone that's been involved with all of your challenges, you definitely see some common island faces popping up, really being some of that connective tissue and going beyond kind of maybe what their remit is to help some of these things move forward. And I think that to me is really the strength of what we're building forward with now. And I think the other opportunity, just to reflect, is that in this call we have, in this panel, we have people that are, for example, Hawaii, which is part of the United States, or the European overseas islands, which are obviously part of Europe, connected to Europe. We have a great opportunity to kind of really influence positive change at a really large scale. And I think what I really see with this new network is that we are looking at how we do that in a way that benefits all of us and benefits the entire planet. So I'm going to ask each of you, starting with Willy, if you're still there, Willy, to give a couple of minutes of closing thoughts. You've heard everyone's remarks. Where to now, and what are your closing remarks for this panel? Willy?
Thank you, Kate. You know, as mentioned by my colleagues, there's real room for us to move forward on what we've already started. And I think, you know, with this Global Island Initiative, 2030 initiative, we can really move many people in that direction. And I think that you know, if we continue to make sure that everybody's informed of what's happening within this network and the different concrete steps that are taking place on the ground, as well as regionally and globally, that we can really support each other in moving forward. You know, we all like some friendly competition. And so if we are able to show progress in the different jurisdictions or the different regions as we're moving forward, I think they can continue to inspire us moving forward. And there's already many good examples of things that are working. We do face the challenges, but I think together we will be able to overcome. And if we can get the donors and the development partners behind a lot of what we're trying to do, that can really go a long ways. But we do need our leaders to be the champions and to be the ones asking for that support, because they when they ask, it's a different thing from when organizations like ours are asking. So thank you.
Thank you, Willy. And over to you, Jabba, with your closing remarks.
Thank you, Kate. Building on what Willy said, in the Caribbean, we are actually working now towards transforming the CCI into a regional mechanism and platform for collective leadership that brings together government, civil society, private sector, community-based organizations with a vision towards 2030. This is very important, and I think as we move forward within this process, we need to continue to work with all of you that are part of this panel in making sure we can achieve that new vision for the CCI. But what I really gather out of this panel, Kate, based on the interventions of everyone, is 5 words that really come to my mind: inspiration, ambition, collective action, and time. Without inspiration, none of the challenges would have been born. We need that inspiration to be the basis of everything. I don't think we can afford not being inspired during the next decade. And that inspiration is what actually gives birth to ambition. And so if we don't have inspiration with ambition, we're not going to be able to make it during the next 10 years. So for me, that's a key thought. The next one is the collective action part. We all talked about it. And I think, again, that it's a key ingredient. It's part of the recipe for the challenges and the local 2030 network to flourish and be successful now and in the future. And the last word I mentioned was time. And I think time is probably the most difficult thing we have at hand, because we need to urgently work together to work on achieving what we need to achieve. And we have no time, because the challenges that we face as islands with climate change, with environmental degradation are so steep and so acute that we have no time. But in many ways, we also need time to be able to consolidate all the actions that we have and make sure that the island solutions that we are building are successful. So we do need to figure out how we play with that time to make sure that it doesn't become an enemy of our efforts, but an ally. So with that, Kate, thank you so much for the invitation, and to Guam for being part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Jabba. It's great to be with you on another panel. And I agree with you. I feel like we've been working on urgent things since 20 years, and now we're on the very urgent end of that period. Celeste, what are your closing remarks?
Okay, I'm just going to reflect on a couple things, but some of it goes back to actually, the nature of the Local 2030 Islands Network and those 4 principles, which actually are defined by the collective experience of the challenges and what we've all collectively found over the course of our work together of what actually is important, and we have our Lieutenant Governor, Josh Green, is going to be joining us on a panel, Lieutenant Governor Tenorio. So that just highlights the political leadership that's so critical to achieving these sustainability goals. And then in the case of Hawaii, we have HGG, the public-private partnership, and Guam, green growth, the partnership component, and actually the partnerships that are the challenges of that key ingredient. And just the commitment we have in Hawaii to share our dashboard model more broadly to bring coherence to our own systems and processes. But one thing that you said, and I think Willy said this as well, Kate, what I think is so significant actually is, as a major economy, the United States, that it's putting its island economies first and forward. with Hawaii and with Guam and actions in Puerto Rico. And it's recognizing the importance of that major island economy engagement here. And so I think that's really transformational, that we see at the federal level a real recognition of the role of local governments and communities in stewarding a sustainability commitment and actually determining what's important to them in these communities. And that is really the only way that we're going to advance our clean energy, our climate security goals, and really achieve the SDGs. So in this space, it's certainly something through the network and our collective experiences that we can actually really help the rest of the world advance the SDG agenda and our respective ambitions more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. And Carol.
Well, it's difficult to make the latest closing remark without repeating. So I would just make a plea to keep on deepening, sharing, and celebrate island culture of sustainability solution. This sense of generosity, this sense of sharing and caring. I think it's important for the respect of the philosophy of the Sustainable Development Goal. So in this regard, what I would like to do is to commit myself maybe to work more closely with the other challenges. And why not? It's a challenge for you, Kate. Why not co-organizing a gathering to really showcase what has been able to be done so far through the different challenges, what actually the network, the local 2030 network could bring as well on the other side of the Atlantic to keep on walking the talk, paving the way for sustainability and resilience. I think in this regard, I would like to recall one sentence that really actually amazed me. It was a speaker saying, what does matter about development and what is a solution is not income. It's about dignity of people. So I think that through our different challenges, we have been actually able to demonstrate that with the support of people, of community, we can make quite some transformational changes and bring to the world innovative solutions. So let's keep on doing so, spreading the word and keeping on again sharing, because it's not only about our generation, it's about the future generation. And here it's the dimension, the intergenerational dimension is key in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you to all of our panel. We're actually at the end of our session, and I think that you have all closed us out wonderfully, but I would like to encourage people to stay engaged with us on the Local 2030 Island Network and in GLISPA, and come and learn more. We're always happy to talk to anyone that's interested in finding out more about what it is we're doing. And I think, as you can see from this dynamic group of speakers who are doing really tremendous things under quite difficult circumstances, that we have the infrastructure in islands to really make a transformation in the world. And I don't say that lightly. So thank you very much to Guam, University of Guam, and all our panelists. And I pass it back to the studio.
Siduos Masi, Kate, and panelists, for showing how islands are rising to the challenge and that it takes all of us to make a commitment for a brighter future.